Again, very warm welcome. Love to see you all here. And today we want to give you a bit of an insight into our last Go Abroad global outreach project, which was called 2022 Go Ahrtal, in which we dealt with dreams, hopes and futures in the Ahr Valley in Germany. Let me just quickly talk about what these global outreach projects are supposed to be. And what the idea behind them is. So the idea behind the Global Outreach Project is global citizenship. Global citizenship, or education for global citizenship, aims to equip all participants with the skills and understanding to take responsibility, to value diversity, and to play an active part in European democratic life today. So this is the idea behind the projects. We want to enable the people who are students today, who will be the decision makers of tomorrow, to have an insight in how the world works outside of their home country, outside of their own culture, and we want them to engage with global challenges on a local level. In recent years, we have dealt with migration and climate change in particular, because we have seen a very good response by students who are very interested in the topic of climate change, and there's always something to talk about when it comes to climate change and environmentalism. How these projects usually work is that we have about a week of interdisciplinary academic program at our home university in Mainz, where we discover the project, the topic at hand, interdisciplinarily from different academic disciplines. And in another week, we have hands-on experience at a location. Last year, this was the Ahrtal, or the Ahr Valley. Here you can see some of our participants. Katharina is here today, which is beautiful. Lyle is going to join us soon. I want to welcome Christoph and Tara, who held talks during the academic program, and also Anne, who had a very special part in the project, who is a DAAD lectorin in Limerick, and was part of our excursion to the Ahr Valley. Great. So why did we go to the Ahr Valley? While we were doing our 2021 project 2 years ago, or 1.5 years ago in the summer, we were dealing with climate change as well, with one particular climate changing event about 100 years ago. And we dealt with all these pictures of floods and devastation and famine. And then suddenly we saw pictures that looked like that resembled our historic sources quite eerily in the news, because the Ahrtal flooded. It was a really devastating event for most people who lived there. But before I tell you something about it from the outside perspective, we want to show you a short film that one of the groups, Anna's group, actually made about their own experience during the flood. So we'd love to show you that now.
Yeah. Please let me know if you have issues with sound or anything.
I heard it just now, yes.
This is the Ahrtal. Adorned with lots of nature, beautiful hiking trails and delicious regional wine. With sites such as the River Ahr, the Forest Climbing Park and some castles, the Ahrtal is a beautiful and unique place to visit and to relax. But with a lot of nature can also come many disasters. The most common natural disasters are wildfires, especially with high temperatures, earthquakes, thaws, as well as floodings. These events are connected to climate change. It demonstrates the cooling and warming of the climate on the Earth over a long period of time. It describes the long-term changes of factors like temperatures, precipitation and currents. An example of the effects of climate change is global warming. A cause for climate change is the greenhouse effect. The sun rays that hit the Earth are absorbed and radiate back to the planet. Another cause is industrialization, which causes double the amount of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere. Humans play a big role too, with factors such as driving cars, flying by plane, or destroying forests by burning them. The consequences are air pollution, extreme weather conditions, increase in sea levels, as well as starvations in a lot of countries.
A recent example for a natural disaster is the flooding in the Ahrtal in July 2021. The disaster occurred from the 14th to the 15th July 2021. Countless bridges were destroyed and partially damaged. Some of those bridges, including the Ahrtal in Ahr Valley, which is now a temporary bridge built by the THW. In addition, most of the schools and kindergartens suffered damage and some had to close temporarily. For the period of reconstruction of the damaged schools, the students of the Peter-Joerres-Gymnasium in Ahr Valley had to attend the private gymnasium and the private secondary school Calvarienberg. The Ahr Gymnasium has moved to a temporary container school in Grafschaft, and the students still go to school there today. Furthermore, work is still being done today to renovate houses and partially rebuild entire villages. In order to bring the topic closer, we interviewed 2 affected classmates and asked them how they experienced the tragic event and how they still deal with it today. We talked to Lena first. We asked her, "What did you feel when the flood happened? What went through your mind that night?" She said, "I was quite relaxed considering that no one, including me, expected the water to rise that quickly and high. I was just worried about my cat and how my brother could deal with the situation and hoped that the firefighters could reach the for help screaming people of the Lebenshilfe house around the corner in time." We asked her, "How do you deal with it today?" And she said, "I try to remember the new cohesion with neighbors and relatives and friends from different parts of the area who came to help rather than the screams from the Lebenshilfe house." Next, we asked Jonas the same questions.
It was an empty feeling. I hadn't had much emotions. You were just functioning. Your body kind of adapted to the situation. I just directly started doing everything I could to help myself and others. But throughout the night, there were some moments where I stopped for a second and started to realize what's happening. But as you were down in the valley, you couldn't fully realize what just happened. My memories of the night are just like a film. It is kind of strange, because on the one hand, I remember everything, but on the other hand, I have some moments where I don't remember a thing. Today, it isn't a big deal anymore. But for example, my mother had more problems with it mentally. I think because I had much help with all the work and many good friends I could talk to, it wasn't a big deal for me. There only were a few moments where I had to take a seat because all the pressure of the upcoming problems got too much.
To also show the aspect of somebody who helped, we interviewed my father. By being an independent...
Okay. If you want to see the interview with the helper as well, just go to our website.
Craftsman with his own...
For all of the videos there.
So, yeah, and 1 year later...
If I can just interrupt here for those who haven't realized what the Lebenshilfe house, that has been mentioned a couple of times, actually means. It means that in Sinzig, so 9 hours after the first victims, people died, 12 people died in the Lebenshilfe house, which is a house for people with reduced mobility. And that's why it was so important when they heard the screams of these people coming out of it. But sadly, none of the 12 people survived. So that was the trauma he was referring to. And I thought I'd better just give you the context of it. Thank you.
Thank you for adding that, Sigrid. And yeah, even a year after, when we were in the Ahrtal, you could still see large amounts of destruction everywhere, especially close to the river banks. There was a lot of destruction, as you can see on these few images, and especially bridges were all temporary bridges. They were just temporary structures, not built to last for decades or something, because all the bridges that were there originally were destroyed. And on the picture on the far right, you can see our tour guide. We did a tour through Ahrweiler with a guide from the the tourism board of this city, who showed us around the destruction and showed us where especially the worst destructions happened in Ahrweiler, and I think it was very impressive to see very harsh reality, to see what climate change can do. I don't know if I can't see if Lyle is there, but maybe Katharina or Lyle, maybe you can unmute yourself and tell us about seeing the effects of climate change.
I don't know if Lyle is here yet.
Sorry, I'm here. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Perfect. Sorry, it's a bit loud here. No, I've just, to answer your question, I found it really profound seeing the bridge, as you can see in the picture, that was destroyed. It shows the power of nature. Having studied a bit of geology myself, I can see how the rocks form to over time create such a flood. And yes, definitely it was one of the most shocking images I saw there. But at the same time, it's nice to see the people power of them all getting together and building the temporary bridge, which in the centre picture you can just see off to the left. I remember that was one of the stories that the tour guide talked to us about, the people power that they managed to bring everyone across from Germany to the area.
I remember one story that tour guide told us, I found very moving. It was, you don't see it on the picture, but there's a photo in the middle, and you can see like on the left-hand side there's some buildings, and actually behind the trees that are a bit more right, there used to be the city wall, or there still is, but yeah, lots of part of that city wall got destroyed, and I found that very yeah, moving, seeing that such a big wall that was built to stand there for a very long time was just destroyed.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you both for sharing that with us. Now we're going to show at least a part of the film of 2022, GO Ahrtal. Oh, that's a bit too much. Exactly.
Thorsten, can we just take questions, just in case somebody has a question or something?
Yeah, of course.
But,
if anyone has questions, feel free to ask.
If you could just go back to the picture, if that's not too much of a problem.
Yeah, of course.
Because when you actually look at that picture a year after, you can see that the level of water is very shallow. And in our summer this year, it did not even reach the Rhine. Normally you have about 30 centimeters, so it goes up to your knee. And that is just what I found so shocking, that within a couple of hours, it would come up to 9 meters from 30 centimeters. So Lyle is shaking his head. Yeah, that was shocking, wasn't it, Lyle? Yeah. Anything else you might want to ask about the Ahrtal? Or we can discuss it further then later on.
Okay, then I'm gonna go over to the film. This will lead you through the 2 weeks we have there. I will cut it short a bit at the end to not waste too much time and get back to talking about it, but and especially to show you the projects they've been doing at the 2 schools. But the first few minutes are very, they show what we've done in the 2 weeks this summer. I want to go to full screen. Yeah, so I hope that works.
feel like climate change is always a phrase that's kind of used around, and I really wanted to get to grips with the term and understand what it means and what action is feasible, and is what next steps can be taken. Not only to think about, I don't know, the UK, but also globally how we can communicate to each other, which was really exciting.
And the reason that I took part in this project was because I studied law at Glasgow, and I think that law by itself is really an ineffective tool to bring about any change, any development in issues to do with climate change. And somehow this really requires interdisciplinary contribution. It requires education from a very young age, and only when these aspects are brought together can effective remedies be created.
There was a phone call coming from the Ministerium of Bildung, of Education, the Ministry of Education, and about March, I guess. And they were asking if we would like to make this project together with the University of Mainz. And of course I said yes, because it's a great opportunity for our students to get in contact with other students from Scotland or Ireland.
I think that we were contacted by the University of Mainz, and my colleague Mr. Brunse also was in contact with the school ministry, school board, and yeah, then we got in touch and started organizing things.
I think the Ahrtal is really close to home, almost. So I was born in Germany, in Speyer. I haven't really come back to Rheinland-Pfalz that often. And I think what's been really interesting about coming to the Ahrtal is not only seeing the environment now that the people live in, but also meeting people who did experience the flood?
Yes, I think nature and climate change is very important to me, because every time I'm in nature, I really feel the power it can give to me, and like it's reloading your energy and getting new energy and power to live your everyday life. And I think protecting nature is the most important, because it's also my future and the future of my generation.
It was fun. It was a good experience because we have native speakers, and that's not so often here. And we have the opportunity to learn from them. It's something new because with the pandemic and so on, we had very few guests here, and it is more fun when we have new people here and we can interact with each other.
It was a great experience meeting people who are native. It's a good feeling, kind of like being back to normal.
To me, having these guests at our school from Scotland and also other parts of Great Britain is very special and very, very cool, and I really appreciate it, because it's like these international connections that are not that often, especially due to COVID and all this pandemic and all the other crises. It was kind of hard to really connect to other parts.
So I think they fit really well here, especially with the project. And I have to be honest, I really got used to talking English in this week, and I think it's also good to learn English.
I thought it's very nice that students from universities are caring of students doing their high levels, so we create our future together.
Oh no, brilliant! Like they couldn't have been more welcoming. All of them were interested in me, and vice versa. I was really interested in seeing what they had to say and what their hobbies were and how they lived their lives. But equally, they were full of questions for me. Yeah, they were really excited for the project, and I'm really up for it.
But I'm also curious to see how they think about their future, what hopes and what fears have the students, especially the one who lives in this area in the Ahrtal and who have experienced the flood the last year.
So I hope you can all still see and hear me, but I think we will stop here. And to see the projects, you either have to listen now, watch the film on our website, and all the projects are also up on the website. And yeah, so I think Lea, you're taking over now for the projects.
Thank you. So as you already saw in that clip, how we did it in the schools is that one or two students from one of the three universities, or two of the three universities, were leading a group of students from the local schools, and they kind of led the school students through a project, and we had different projects they could choose from. Our university students thought of them in advance, and then the students could choose what they were interested in. So we had short films. We had a group that was thinking of startups they would love to see in their community. We had, I think, 2 creative writing groups. Yeah, one about like hopes and dreams in general and how they imagine their future, and one that kind of put together a magazine out of their ideas, poems, and journalistic adventures. We had a group that was dealing with their relationship to nature and what nature means to them. And we had 2 groups that kind of imagined their ideal state. So 2 law students from Glasgow went and gave their expertise to the students. How would you create, what kind of laws would you implement if you were to create your ideal state? And finally, we had one group that was kind of more focused on technology and future, which created a timeline of how the future might look like. So maybe let's talk about the short films first. That was Anna's group, and Anna's here. So I would ask you, Anna, maybe to say a few words how it was for you to work with the students. We have 3 videos linked here. You can choose from maybe if you want to show one of them, which is the life of the soda can, the one about the climate demonstration, and the last one is the walk in the woods, I think.
I think so.
Hello, everybody, and yeah, it's a pleasure to be here, and I'm also very grateful to have had the opportunity to participate in the project this summer. It kind of was, Leah, you already introduced me. My role was kind of a special role, so I remember chatting to Leah. There was a call that was actually had gone out to our students at the University of Limerick. As Leah said, I'm teaching there. I'm a DAAD lecturer. It was kind of short notice for them to organize a trip, but I thought, since I had taught, I'd try to incorporate environmental topics into my teaching, and I have read a bit of eco-fiction, climate fiction in one of my literature classes. That matches so well. So we got in touch, and Leah asked me whether I could jump in, because I think there were a few Scottish students as well who had dropped out. So basically I jumped in and offered to give one of the workshops. That was pretty much short films, although initially I left it open to them. I wanted to the students really to lead and to have the chance to get their ideas. So initially I left it open, and they could have come up with a different format as well, but all of them worked on short films eventually. So I think it was 4 short films altogether. We already saw part of one of the films that was actually very much linked to the situation in the Ahrtal, and that was maybe one of the things I remember chatting to you two, Thorsten and Leah, in advance. That was maybe one of the biggest challenges for me personally before starting the workshop and before meeting the students. I was actually quite nervous because I'm not a psychologist, and I didn't want to trigger any trauma, and especially with the topic of climate change. So it was very good that we had a day, I think, to just meet the students, to talk to the teachers at the schools, to the principal of the school as well. And I talked to a few people and asked about it. And the general idea was to make the students, like, give them a voice, but don't push too hard, or don't, like, to give them opportunities. If they want to talk about what happened during the flood, that's fine, but if they don't want to, that absolutely needs to be accepted as well. And I'm really, yeah, I'm still so pleasantly surprised by the range of topics they focused on. The video we saw was actually the only one that addressed the floodings in the Ahrtal. I'm not sure how many minutes I have actually maybe I should.
If you choose maybe one video you might you want to show, they're really short, like 2 or 3 minutes, right?
I think the life of the soda can is, from an artistic point of view, it's very nice, and it shows maybe the variety as well, and yeah, the variety of short films they came up with.
So they wrote the script, they did all the filming, they did all the editing by themselves, right?
Sorry, I didn't mean to start it already.
I think we're ready.
Okay, then I'll start.
These kids!
I really love that video. I feel like it gives you, it has a very nice artistic style. It uses music really well, and it also shows the students' love for their immediate environment. And it also gives some kind of PSA, right? So that's I can only recommend you visit our website and look at the other ones because they're great as well. Let's move on to the next group. Unfortunately, no one from that group is here today, so I'll just give you a short overview. This was the startup group, so the students thought of startup, small startups they would love to see in their city or like region. So they came up with a vegan cafe, an electric bus service that goes all through the night, which is, I think, a big topic for teenagers in rural areas. And they created a corporate design for their idea, and we have all presented them on the 22 GO Ahrtal Instagram page, where you can see all of the posts, some made videos, and always a little informative text about every project. The next group is a creative writing group, which was very, like in very broad terms, dealt with future hopes and dreams. Most of the texts deal with future. There are some quite dire ones, for example, that one, which I won't take the time to read out right now, but if you want to read through some diary entries, I think 1 or 2 poems as well, these are on our website as well. And finally, the relationship to nature group, which I had the pleasure of subbing in one day, because unfortunately our student was ill. They had a very dainty group. They collected flowers and made artwork and wrote some stories that were inspired by some stones or a piece of plastic they found in nature. while they were sowing grass at the riverbanks and as part of one renaturation project. So I really like that group, but I'm biased because it's the only one I've really worked with. And you can see their results as well in a video form where there's some spoken word and some impressions of their work.
Yeah, so I'm taking over again, and as we already mentioned, two of the groups thought about what their ideal states could be like. There was Ideal Land and Justitia, and while Ideal Land had a very impressive press conference in the end where they applied to be part of the UN, or NATO, no, it's the UN, I think, and Justitia, they made a podcast about what they would change about Germany, basically. So they started with Germany and tried to think of laws and ideas, what they would change. They were very adamant about starting school later than they do at their current school. They came up with 9 a.m. They were very adamant about continuing the €9 ticket, which we had in Germany this summer, which was a ticket to drive on local trains all throughout Germany for €9 a month. And yeah, they had also a big focus on protection for vulnerable people in society, so mentally challenged people, people who fight depression and stuff like that. They were very conscious of that and to support these people. And I think Katharina was in the group with Ideal Land, so maybe if you want to say a bit about your project now.
Yeah, I'd like to. You've been talking about the press conference we gave, and that was a bit the frame that we gave to the students. Like we were saying, imagine the UN has given the world a second chance, and you can create an ideal land, and what would that look like? And I remember we started a bit with like the first day we were only discussing things like what we like and dislike about Germany and what kind of values are important to us, and we did lots of brainstorming, and then we were trying to do step by step with the students so that they can come up with their own decisions. Yeah, they went into groups after that, and well, we called them ministries, or the students did, and each ministry was in charge of one area. Like we had one ministry that was discussing things about like in environmental issues for that Ilia land. We had one that was dealing with the laws. One was in charge with media, and they also created the flag and tried to represent the values that the students thought of before. And yeah, so every group was in charge of one field, and in the end we put everything together, and they did lots of, they were very independent, our students, so they were kind of happy that they could work in their groups, but they're very eager to bring in their own ideas. And it was kind of fun watching them, how they combine everything. And yeah, I couldn't see the end results because I wasn't there on the last day, but I only heard that yeah, everyone was very happy with how it came out, and yeah, I quite enjoyed working with the students.
Yeah, thank you. And we do have the press conference in these presentations. I will only show like the first minute or something like that. It's quite long, but to give you an impression of what the press conference of Ideal looked like, you can see it now, I hope.
We have a dream. Good morning, everyone. Finally, I'm fortunate to announce that I'm the first elected president of Ideal Land. Firstly, I would like to thank all of you for coming together. Today is a very special occasion. After months and years of working, we're finally able to present you Ideal Land, the only state in the world that includes communication, governmental competence, environment, and economy in a balanced and fair way. As the president of Ideal Land, I would like to give a short overview on the main ideas of our government. Then, my presidents will present the most important points about Ideal Land. Freedom, quality, respect, and responsibility. These are the values of Ideal Land. We, as the government, are working for a stable state where all feel at home and secure. And that is why we're speaking now before the UN to prove that we are worthy to become a state in today's world. Now, allow me to introduce our sectors. The communication.
All right, I think that's enough to give an impression. Yeah, if you want to see the full video, you can find it on our website, scotland.uni-mainz.de, and there are all the other videos we shown today. They are on there. Have a browse maybe later on. At the next group, this was Timeless Magazine. This was also a creative writing group who chose to arrange their creative writing projects in a magazine. And the magazine is set in the year 2122, so 100 years in the future. And they wrote about major changes 100 years from now and some problems that seem familiar from today's perspective. They all put it on some sort of timeline, as you can see on the right. Yeah, a lot of creative writing in there. There is an interview with an imaginary butterfly man, a superhero, who fights lizard man, and it's quite funny, I think. And there's also poems, like the tree poem on your right. I won't read it now, but you can go to this website down here to see it for yourself in full. And there's also like a crossword puzzle in there. There's very different arrangement of things. It's quite good, and it's all beautifully designed, and a wonderful magazine from the future, basically, as a commentary on today's world. And the final group was the Timeline. This was the group who imagined when certain technologies will be phased out and when certain technologies will exist. But we do have a person from this group here, Lyle, if you want to unmute and show your camera and talk a bit about your project.
Yes, so this is actually the first time that I've seen the final product, and I'm really impressed with it. And unfortunately, I had to leave as well before the final day. But from what we talked about in the first couple of days, it was about a timeline discussing, for example, at what date would coal be phased out, and would we need to have green energy improved on? Litter was also a major factor. How can we recycle far more? And as you can see down at the bottom, I believe near the end of the PowerPoint, they're talking about renewable homeware. And on the Wednesday, we went on a school trip to a nuclear bunker, and we saw the historical artifacts that were still in some way or another being used. We're talking about how can we renew these items in our houses for today.
Yeah, perfect. And from someone who has seen the final product in person, I think they also did like a little game where they let the audience guess where certain technologies might come in and when certain technologies might be phased out. And it was really funny because it was quite different when the audience saw these things coming and when the group saw these things coming. So, for example, like the disuse of single-use plastic was, I think, much later, and some nuclear power was phased out much earlier because in Germany, of course, we're planning to phase out nuclear power right about now. So the audience was more like, yeah, let's phase it out now. So it was quite funny and also enlightening about which technologies might help us in the future and when they might come in. So, and now I'll give back to Leah for the view on our next project, 2023 GO Ahrtal.
Thank you. Thank you very much. So you basically said everything on that slide already, which is impressive because you didn't say that much. Yeah, so the idea is that the forest, der Wald, is it kind of represents a lot of climate change. It has multiple roles in climate change. It is kind of one thing we hang all our hopes on when it comes to reforestation and these climate projects that kind of build, plant trees and hope that fixes everything. And on the other hand, how the forest gets sick and how the forest, how we destroy the forest is kind of a representation of how we destroy our climate. So we are very excited to talk about Wald in our next project, which will be 4 weeks long for reasons that are too broad to cover now. Basically, we're still in the wake of Brexit. And we're refiguring stuff out. So for the first time, we will also offer a real chance to learn German, a 2-week language course for everyone who participates who doesn't speak German, because this year we had a lot of Scottish and Irish students who didn't speak German at all. So we want to give them the opportunity to have at least a little insight into the language and culture. And then again, we want to have an interdisciplinary academic week, a hands-on week in the Biosphärenreservat, Pfälzerwald Nordvogesen, some excursions to see some geologic and biologic activity, which is going to be exciting. And all of this will culminate again in a artistic multimedia project, probably, which we want to present at our Scotfest, which we want to launch. Sigrid, maybe do you want to say something about the Scotfest?
Yes, Scott you spell with both one T for Scotland, but also for 2 T's for Scott, because he was a great nature lover. He had a lot of issues also with what we call a well-being. For instance, he insisted that he is going for a walk, wind or weather, whatever, every day, and to get his, his feeling of nature intact. But what we want to do is to open it up to the people in Rhineland-Palatinate, and include Scottish and Irish universities only. Sorry about the Welsh and the English. So Scottish and Irish universities at Scotfest. The Irish consul has already said that she will be with us for 3 days, so I will hold her to it, from Frankfurt. What we are planning to do is invite you over again, either for 4 weeks. This is modular, so you can choose to have this extra 2 weeks add on to learn German. If you already have German or you feel that you can get by without German, then come on Sunday the 25th of June. Otherwise, you can come on the 10th of June, and we are trying to arrange a language course at different levels for you. And it ends, the Scotfest is the first weekend in July. And why we are having this time is because it was so good to hear this all from the Ahrtal, and there was this whole group of students, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I think we reached out to about 70 students in the Peter-Joerres-Gymnasium and Calvarienberg, so around that, perhaps even more, and of course the teachers. But it was so good that we decided to open this up and make this part of the Rhineland-Palatinate Kultur Sommer. It happens to be that the Summer of Culture, as we call it, is sort of always having a folkie, and these folkie this time is actually on Ireland, yes, Scotland, and sort of the western part of our sort of Netherlands, Benelux, France. And that's why we want to showcase this as part of the Cultural Summer. And perhaps I might want to mention, if I'm not recorded on this one, I might want to mention it brings in some money from the Land Rheinland-Pfalz by linking it up to it. to get some money from it. So, which means that we would like the students, the staff, to represent what or to present what they have been experiencing, doing a show. But we will also have a show by the one literary executor that's still alive from the Nan Shepherd estate in Scotland. He will come over and perform, and I hope with you students, perform a play on Nan Shepherd's The Living Mountain, which we're going to transform into The Living Forest. We have talked to the people in the Rheinland-Pfalz Biosphärenreservat, and they're very, very excited about us coming, and it will be basically outdoor education, but it will include talks again on why the Wald is so important in German psyche, in German identity, in literature, in culture,